On June 12, 2025, Air India Flight 171 began its journey. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner was scheduled to fly from Ahemedabad, India, to London Heathrow. The departure seemed routine. Passengers settled into their seats for the long-haul flight. The crew completed their pre-flight checks. The aircraft, registration VTANB, pushed back from the gate on time. It taxied to the runway under clear skies. The weather was not a factor. There were no signs of the tragedy that would unfold just moments later. The flight was full, carrying dreams, business plans, and families reuniting across continents, all packed into the modern fuselage of a state-of-the-art airliner. The powerful engines spooled up. The aircraft accelerated down the runway. It lifted into the air with what appeared to be a normal ascent. For those on the ground, it was just another plane climbing into the sky. For the 242 people on board, 230 passengers and 12 crew members, it was the start of a familiar voyage. But within minutes, the familiar became terrifying. The aircraft never reached its cruising altitude. Instead, it faltered. It began a rapid, uncontrollable descent. The destination was no longer London. The flight ended in a catastrophic crash in the Magani Nagar area of Ahemedabad, a densely populated urban neighborhood. The aircraft slammed into the BJ Medical College hostel. The impact was devastating. The building, home to students and staff, was instantly engulfed in a massive fireball. The quiet of the afternoon was shattered by an explosion that echoed across the city. Wreckage and jet fuel were scattered over a wide area. First responders rushed to the scene, but they were met with an inferno. The crash claimed the lives of 241 of the 242 people on the aircraft. It also resulted in a terrible loss on the ground, with at least 39 residents of the hostel perishing in the disaster, their lives cut short in an instant. This event immediately became India's deadliest air disaster in nearly 3 decades. The scale of the loss was immense. It was also a landmark event for aviation globally, marking the first fatal hull loss of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner since the aircraft type entered service in 2011. The world watched in shock as the news spread. Questions began to surface immediately. How could a modern, well-maintained aircraft fall from the sky so quickly? The answers would have to be pieced together from the smoldering ruins, a difficult task for investigators facing a scene of profound destruction and loss. In the midst of unimaginable tragedy, a single story of survival emerged. It was a story that seemed to defy all odds. Out of the 242 souls aboard Flight 171, one person lived. His name is Vishwash Kumar Ramesh. He was seated in 11A, a window seat on the left side of the aircraft, located near an emergency exit. As the plane broke apart upon impact, this section of the fuselage was thrown clear of the main wreckage and the intense post-crash fire. This remarkable twist of fate placed him in the one spot where survival was possible, a tiny island of fortune in an ocean of catastrophe. Witnesses described a surreal scene. A man, later identified as Mr. Ramesh, was seen walking away from the burning debris. He was dazed and had sustained only minor injuries. First responders, who were preparing for the worst, could hardly believe what they were seeing. To them and to the world, it was a miracle. The survival of a single passenger in a high-impact crash into a building is exceptionally rare in aviation history. His escape provides a small but powerful beacon of hope amidst the overwhelming grief. His account will be invaluable to investigators trying to understand the final moments inside the cabin. The location of his seat, 11A, is significant. Aviation safety experts often note that seats near an exit row can offer a slightly higher chance of survival, but only if the surrounding fuselage remains relatively intact. In this case, the structural failure of the aircraft during the crash sequence worked in his favor. The section he was in separated from the main fuel-laden wing box, which was the epicenter of the fire. His ability to unbuckle his seatbelt and move away from the immediate danger zone was critical. His story underscores the chaotic and unpredictable nature of aircraft accidents, where survival can depend on inches and seconds. The world's attention has focused on Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, but he is now a man grappling with an immense emotional burden. He is the sole witness from inside the plane, the only one who can speak for the 241 who did not survive. He carries the weight of their final moments, authorities have been careful to protect his privacy as he recovers from the physical and psychological trauma. His miraculous survival is a central part of this tragedy, a testament to the strange and sometimes inexplicable forces at play when disaster strikes. His journey forward will be long and difficult, forever linked to the flight that ended so tragically for everyone else. The flight of Air India 171 lasted only a few minutes. The aircraft took off and climbed to an altitude of approximately 625 feet. This is a critical phase of flight, where the plane is flying low and slow, with little room for error. According to initial reports, the first sign of trouble came very quickly. Within 30 to 60 seconds of becoming airborne, the pilots issued a Mayday distress call. This is a universal signal for a grave and imminent threat to the aircraft and the lives of those on board. It indicates that the crew was aware of a catastrophic failure and was struggling to maintain control of the plane. Investigators have pointed to one crucial piece of evidence from the wreckage: the deployment of the ram air turbine, or RAT. This is a small emergency propeller that drops from the fuselage to generate essential hydraulic and electrical power if the main engines and backup systems fail. Its deployment is an automated response to a total loss of primary power. This tells investigators that Flight 171 likely suffered a dual-engine failure or a complete loss of its electrical and hydraulic systems. For a modern aircraft like the Dreamliner, such a complete failure is almost unthinkable, pointing to a severe and cascading series of events. The aircraft itself, a Boeing 787-8 with the registration VT-A&B, had a clean maintenance record. Air India reported that one of its two engines had been recently overhauled, while the other was inspected in 2023. There were no known defects or outstanding maintenance issues that would have predicted such a failure. This makes the search for a cause even more complex. Investigators must now look beyond routine maintenance logs to find the root of the problem. Every component, from the fuel lines to the flight control software, will be scrutinized for clues that could explain the sudden loss of power. The rapid loss of altitude was the final, fatal part of the sequence. After the Mayday call and the RAT deployment, the pilots had very little time and even less altitude to work with. They were unable to restart the engines or glide the aircraft to a safe landing area, such as the nearby airport. The plane descended quickly, crashing into the densely populated neighborhood below. The entire event, from takeoff to impact, unfolded in less than 3 minutes. The flight's data and cockpit voice recorders, the black boxes, will be essential to understanding exactly what happened in those final, desperate moments. Immediately following the crash, a massive investigation was launched. The primary goal is to determine the cause and prevent a similar tragedy from happening again. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, or AAIB, is leading the effort. Given the international nature of the flight and the aircraft's manufacturer, the investigation is a global collaboration. Experts from the United States National Transportation Safety Board, the United Kingdom's Air Accidents Investigation Branch, and representatives from Boeing and engine maker GE Aerospace have all arrived in Ahemedabad to assist. This level of cooperation is standard for major air disasters and ensures that the best resources are used. Investigators have successfully recovered the two crucial black boxes from the wreckage. These are the cockpit voice recorder, which captures sounds and conversations in the cockpit, and the flight data recorder, which logs thousands of parameters about the aircraft's performance. These devices are heavily protected and designed to survive intense impacts and fires. They hold the key to understanding the sequence of failures and the crew's actions. The boxes will likely be sent to the NTSB's labs in Washington, D.C. for analysis, as they have some of the most advanced facilities in the world for this kind of work. Several theories are being actively investigated. The first is a catastrophic technical failure, such as the dual-engine failure suggested by the RAT deployment. Another possibility is a configuration error, where the flaps or landing gear were not set correctly for takeoff, leading to a loss of lift. A third, more sinister theory is sabotage. Authorities are reviewing CCTV footage from the airport and questioning ground staff to rule out any intentional act, such as fuel contamination or an explosive device. Finally, a bird strike is being considered, though it is seen as less likely to cause a complete failure on a large modern jet. While the investigation proceeds, Air India has taken precautionary steps. The airline has announced a temporary reduction in the usage of its long-haul Dreamliner fleet by 15%. It has also initiated a fleet-wide inspection of its Boeing 787s, focusing on the engines and electrical systems. This is a standard industry practice after a major accident involving a specific aircraft type. It is done to ensure public confidence and to identify any potential systemic issues that might exist across the fleet. The results of these inspections will be shared with investigators to help them build a complete picture of the accident. The crash of Air India Flight 171 has sent ripples of grief across India and around the world. In the days following the disaster, families of the victims have gathered in Ahemedabad, united by their shared loss. Many have expressed frustration with the slow process of victim identification and the level of support provided by authorities. For the families of British citizens who were on the flight, the distance has made the ordeal even more painful. They have criticized the crisis management systems in place, highlighting a need for better communication and coordination during international tragedies of this scale. The response from Indian authorities has been swift, but the event has exposed potential weaknesses in the country's aviation ecosystem. The crash has triggered a broader review of safety regulations. One of the most pressing issues is the encroachment of urban development around major airports. The fact that the plane crashed into a densely populated area, causing casualties on the ground, has reignited a long-standing debate. Experts are calling for stricter zoning laws and better urban planning to create larger safety buffers around flight paths, especially in rapidly growing cities where land is at a premium. A preliminary report from the AAIB is expected within 4 to 6 weeks. This report will provide initial findings but will not assign a final cause. The full investigation is likely to take a year or more to complete. During this time, every piece of evidence will be analyzed, from metallurgical tests on engine fragments to simulations of the flight's final moments. The goal is to produce a definitive account of what went wrong and to issue safety recommendations that can be implemented worldwide. The findings could lead to new directives for airlines, manufacturers, and maintenance providers. This tragedy will undoubtedly leave a lasting mark on Indian aviation. It serves as a somber reminder that despite modern technology, air travel is not without risk. The lessons learned from the loss of Flight 171 will likely lead to changes in pilot training, maintenance protocols, and even aircraft design. For the families of the 280 people who lost their lives, these changes will come too late. But their memory will drive the efforts to ensure that such a devastating event never happens again, making the skies safer for future generations of travelers.